Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown,
the unofficial sumo podcast
for official sumo fans.
Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown. This is Ryan.
This is Jake.
And this is our Bonsuke preview episode for the upcoming Haru Basho. Sorry, it's about a week later than we usually do this. I would like everybody to know that it was not a Ryan issue that fell wholly on the shoulders of Jake.
Well, it's the fault of someone that exists because of me. So yes, it's indirectly my fault. No, babies are exhausting, and recording on weeknights, Like I texted you, Ryan, I have always sympathized, but like until you experience yourself having an infant in the home when you're also like working full time and then trying to do a podcast episode, different level of difficulty here.
It's easier for you right now when they're a potato and you could just hand it to the wife and be like, all right, you take care of the potato now.
It's a very loud, angry potato.
Yeah,
it's a potato just full of blind rage.
Katie just needs to deal with that blind rage on her own for about an hour. When he gets to Riley's age, that's when it becomes more of an issue.
I feel like she's still stronger and faster than him at that point, so it's going to be okay, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we dive into the Bonsuke prediction, Jake, do you want to give an update on amateur sumo, if there is anything new going on?
There's a buttload new. How dare you? Coming up this Saturday on the Lone Star Sumo YouTube channel, February 11th, we have the Mighty Eagle Team Tournament. That is in San Antonio, Texas, hosted by Mighty Eagle Sumo. And that one is special. It's a 3-person team, and each team will go up against another 3-person team. Depending on how many people they have signed up, it'll change the format a little bit, but the concept of being a team and fighting other teams is something that they've done it maybe a year and a half ago, I think, and looking to make it a regular thing because it doesn't really happen anywhere else. Yeah. Super cool concept. And the time that they did it before, they had like, I think 6 teams of 3 that did a round robin against each other. And then they also had time for an open weight. Shout out to Nationals host Cornelius Booker for winning that one. Then 2 weeks from this Saturday, February 25th in San Diego, Honu Sumo is hosting the SoCal Open. This is their first tournament, and go check out for both of these, go check out the preview interviews that we did. But the SoCal Open is going to be pretty huge. They have a ton of people registered for that already.
Nice.
And then next month, I'll go over these more briefly because there's some more time, and we're going to have plenty of episodes on them. Nationals is March 11th in Orlando, hosted by Iron Wave Sumo. And then on March 25th will be the Kuma Sumo Bash, an all-youth tournament, another first in Nashville, Tennessee, hosted by the Antioch High Sumo Club. We have adults are welcome as well to hang out, teach the kids things they've learned, but the tournament itself is going to be a youth-only tournament, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting.
Yeah, both of the Honu Sumo event, the SoCal Open, that will be on Maximum Effort Studios on YouTube. And then Nationals and the Kuma Sumo Bash, I think, I'm not sure if those are determined yet, but those will also be streaming on YouTube Live. But that's where we're at. Like I said, there will be more episodes on those, but most importantly, because it's coming up soonest, Mighty Eagle Team Tournament this Saturday, Lone Star Sumo channel.
All right, sounds good. So if you're interested in any of those events, you know where to check them out now. So let's go ahead and dive into my prediction for how the Haru Bonsuke will shake out. And as always, we will start at the top with our Yokozuna ozeki ranking, that being Terunofuji, still, unfortunately, our sole Yokozuna. Not unfortunately that it's Terunofuji, just unfortunate Takakeisho will not be joining him there. That's all that's happening there. He's going to be on the east side, and then our sole ozeki once again will be Takakeisho, because we have Terunofuji fulfilling the role of Yokozuna ozeki on the east side. Takakeisho will be on the west side, despite there not being any other ozeki on the east side.
Because the universe will implode if we don't have 2 ozeki on the Bonsuke, as we've discussed at length in the past.
Absolutely, yeah. There will just be a hole in the earth where Tokyo used to be. If
It's
that
like
were
a
to
divide
occur.
by 0 kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep. And so obviously Takakeisho was not recommended for promotion to Yokozuna, and he will remain at Ozeki for at least this Basho. Hopefully we will have 2 Yokozuna to talk about on the next
That'd
Bonsuke
be cool.
prediction episode. That would be just fantastic.
We'll definitely talk about that more in our preview, especially for the next Basho. But like, the bar is probably as low as it is possible to get for Takakeisho to get Yokozuna right now. Like any Yusho, like the short version, my opinion, any Yusho will get him the promotion.
I think that's the popular working theory right now is 2 back-to-back Yushos, back-to-back Yusho, you should be promoted. So,
but yeah, we'll talk about that plenty more, and there will probably even be like news articles and quotes and stuff out there by the time that we record that.
Yep, absolutely. So let's drop down to the Sekiwake rank, where I feel like every Basho nowadays need to kind of stop down and have a long, drawn-out 15 to 20-minute conversation about how many rikishi we will have in the Sanyaku ranks, because it's gotten fairly messy over the past 6 months. And we're going to continue to have more than our typical 2 Sekiwake and 2 Komusubi ranks this Basho as well. But luckily this time, I think I can compress it into 5 minutes or under and figuring out the number of Sanyaku rikishi this time, because I feel like it's a lot more straightforward this time. And how many rikishi we have in the Sanyaku ranks isn't going to have any huge ramifications that follow us down the Bonsuke like we had with, well, if we only have the typical number of Sanyaku that we would have in a Basho of like 5 for the last one, that means Abi's going to have a 2 rank promotion after a 12-3 record. And so we can't do that. There's no situation like that this time. We can follow the typical rules. So that being said, it is my opinion we can't look at the last Bonsuke as precedent setting for what creates a new Sanyaku slots. I think they were created out of need and desperation and not out of rikishi deserving it based on the precedent that has been set recently. We can look at a couple of examples. In Kyushu, Meisei had a 9-6 record from Maegashira 2. He was promoted to an extra Komusubi slot, and that goes against recent precedent of Maegashira 2 rikishi with 9-6 records, only going up to Maegashira 1 if there's no open Sanyaku slots for them. Or even in one case, we saw 1 slide over from Maegashira 2 East to Maegashira 3 West. So 9-6 record for Maegashira 2 should not create any new Sanyaku slots. Sorry, Tamawashi, on this go round.
Yeah.
Last time in Kyushu, we also saw Wakamoto Haru, who had a 10-5 record for Maegashira 4. He got an extra Komusubi slot created for him. This also broke recent precedent that saw some rikishi not get an extra Sanyaku slot created for them, even with a 10-5 record from Maegashira 2. So we're going to stick with what we know is good enough for creating extra Sanyaku slots for this Basho, and hope that they're not creating any new precedents, and hoping that the change at the top of the Shimpan committee, Isekahama leaving, and that role being, I believe it's the former Kaio that is going to be taking over as the head of the Shimpan department. I believe that's what I saw. Hopefully,
you'd think I'd remember that if we talked about it like, yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. We talked about Kaio yesterday. We didn't talk about the extra or his new role in the JSA. But I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. Take that with a grain of salt. I did not confirm that before.
If that's who it is, watch for the name Asakayama.
I believe that's the name. Yeah, that you said yesterday.
Well, that's the name I said yesterday, but I don't know if that's the same name that's the new head of the judging.
Gotcha.
But yes, that's what Kaio goes by now.
Yep. So yeah, hopefully there's no new set of rules that they're going to go by with the new head of the Shimpan department that I need to figure out and adjust to over the next few Bonsuke. I'd like to stay in the top 10 of Guess the Bonsuke, if at all possible. So with that being said, let's go through what I think our Sekiwake ranks are going to look like. And it's easy enough for the top 2 rikishi in the Sekiwake ranks, because it should stay the same for the 4th consecutive basho. We should have Wakataka Kage as Sekiwake East and Hoshoryu as Sekiwake West. This will actually be the 7th consecutive basho where Wakataka Kage will be Sekiwake East. And the record for consecutive basho at Sekiwake East in the modern era is 8. So if Wakataka Kage gets a winning record here, he could tie for the longest consecutive streak at Sekiwake East.
That's hilarious. At what point does it stop being impressive and start being depressing that he isn't an ozeki yet?
I think it's always impressive because you know exactly how good Wakataka Kage is. He is Sekiwake East good. He's not dropping below there. He's not good enough to force an ozeki slot. You know exactly how good he is.
It is mathematically satisfying to know precisely the amount of good that he is right now.
Yeah. Yes.
For more than a
absolutely.
year now.
Yep. And so I do have a third Sekiwake slot being created here. I have that going to Kiribayama. So the typical number of wins required to open up an extra Sekiwake slot for a Komosubi, if there isn't an open one already, which we do not have, is 11 wins for a Komosubi. And that's exactly what Kiribayama had in the Hatsu Basho. So if an extra Sekiwake rank is not created for Kiribayama here, this would be the first time in sumo history a Komosubi with 11 wins did not get promoted to Sekiwake. So
Wow.
I feel like that's pretty slam dunk for Kiribayama here. And that's a good looking Sekiwake rank if that is how it turns out, which I can't
Very
imagine.
handsome men, yeah.
Well, that and just a lot of promise for those 3 guys, I feel like. It's not like a weird basho where Miyogiryu got bumped up to Sekiwake or something like that.
Sure.
I think all 3 of these guys have ozeki potential.
If I recall, at least 1 or 2 of us picked these 3 as like our next ozeki. Like specifically these 3 as a group. We're like
yeah. Between the 4 of us, all 3 of these guys were predicted to be an ozeki by the end of the year.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I think we all stand by that. But yeah, just proves to show what experts we are.
Yes, absolutely. There has been some discussion that I saw on sumo forums about keeping the current Banzuke structure of 8 Sekiwake and 8 Komosubi, or 4 Sekiwake and 4 Komosubi.
That's more like it.
With a total of 8 rikishi in the lower Sanyaku. I don't see that happening. Because as I meant, the talk is promoting Wakamoto Haru up to Sekiwake. And I think the thinking kind of what I had for the previous Banzuke is like, well, Komosubi 2 East and West are already there, so it's not like we're creating Komosubi 2 East and West. So I think that's kind of the thought that's going there, but I just don't see that happening because a 9 and 6 Komosubi has not been promoted to Sekiwake without any open slots in the Sekiwake ranks for 25 years. And just in Aki of last year, Kiribayama had 9 wins from Komosubi 2 West, just like Wakamoto Haru did in Hatsu, and he was promoted to Komosubi 1 West. So I just don't see that promotion happening. Sure. It doesn't make sense to me. I really hope it doesn't happen, because if it does, it would ruin my guess at Bonsuke, and I'd absolutely be outside of the top 10,
yeah,
which is the most important thing. Got to stay inside the top 10.
So what do you think? It occurs to me that, like, yes, keeping the same shape of Bonsuke from the last time is a tantalizing prospect to, like, you know, if we just keep that number, then, you know, this works out, and then that works out, and then that works out. Do you think that they are creating the Bonsuke from scratch, or do you think they are more adjusting the Bonsuke based on where it was before? Which do you think would be more conceptually accurate based on your understanding, of course?
I feel like it's created from scratch, because we've seen more new Sekiwake slots created as we've watched sumo, I feel like, than Komosubi, due to like a dropping ozeki when the 2 prior Komosubi or Sekiwake already had winning records, so there wasn't a new slot. And it's not like in those situations where we had a 3rd Sekiwake the following basho, we didn't just keep having 3 Sekiwake if nobody deserved to create. I feel like you have to create the new Sanyaku slots every basho. It's not like, well, we've got it now, this is just how it is, because if that's how it was, it would just be all Sekiwake Komusubi, because we just keep adding more and more as more people deserve to be in there. So I feel like you're always working with the basis of 2 Sekiwake, 2 Komusubi, and if there's some situation that forces you to put more in there, that's what you do. We've just had a lot of those situations recently. But yeah, I feel like we're starting from scratch each time, is my understanding.
Makes sense. And yeah, I mean, clearly it's speculation, but like that you feel like that side of the spectrum would fit the fact pattern that you've seen so far better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So if we're not promoting Wakamoto Haru, it means the top 2 Komusubi ranks are going to be fairly easy to fill. Koto no Waka and Wakamoto Haru will be our Komusubi ones, but the order they go in isn't straightforward. They both had winning records, but Koto no Waka had 8 wins from Komusubi 1 West, while Wakamoto Haru had 9 wins from Komusubi 2 West. So how will the Banzuke committee handle this scenario? They could promote Koto no Waka to that open Komusubi 1 East slot, since that's the only way Koto no Waka is going to be promoted after his winning record. Or will they move Wakamoto Haru ahead of Koto no Waka to take that Komusubi 1 East spot, since his better record in the Hatsu Basho means he should be ahead of Koto no Waka on the next Banzuke. So I've waffled back and forth, and honestly, I think the way that it's going to go down is different than what I submitted for Guess the Banzuke. I've reverted back to a different thinking. Right now, how I think it's going to happen, I think Koto no Waka will get the promotion. Wakamoto Haru will be... Koto no Waka would end up Komusubi 1 East, Wakamoto Haru Komusubi 1 West. What I put in Guess the Banzuke was the other way of thinking, where I have Wakamoto Haru, and what we're going to go off of for this conversation. I have Wakamoto Haru jumping over Koto no Waka to take the vacant Komusubi 1 East ranking. I wish I had precedent that was more recent than 18 years ago, but
but that's what we got.
This situation hasn't occurred in 18 years. But Hakuho jumped Kyoku Tenho in 2005 for an open Sekiwake rank, when Kyoku Tenho was 8-7 at Komusubi East and Hakuho was 9-6 at Komusubi West. And then around that same time period, Tochiazuma and Dejima switched sides when Tochiazuma went 9-6 from Komusubi West and Dejima was 8-7 at Komusubi East. So that's they switched the order of those two. We've seen that happen, like the Sekiwake ranks in extreme cases where they've both had winning records, but that always involved the Sekiwake West having a Yusho or Jun Yusho. Then they'd flip spots with the Sekiwake East. From what we've seen in our recently 9-6, 8-7 switch wouldn't happen, because 11-7 Hoshoryu didn't jump 8-7 Wakatakakage after the last basho, which that thinking is what made me think no, Koto no Waka is probably going to stay ahead of Wakamoto Haru here so that Koto no Waka can get that promotion. But it is interesting because, so I mentioned Tochiazuma, Dejima, they switched sides when Tochiazuma had a 9-6 record from Komusubi West and Dejima had an 8-7 record at Komusubi East. Then the following basho, Dejima went 9-6 from Komusubi West and Tochiazuma was 8-7 from Komusubi East, and Dejima was promoted to Sekiwake, and I think he actually created a third Sekiwake slot. So that's the promotion that I was talking about that happened 25 years ago.
That's whack.
Which also makes me really question using that for precedent, because that's not
because
I just argued against that for Wakamoto Haru.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the one with Hakuho because Hakuho is a Yokozuna. So like clearly they knew that ahead of time and thus promoted him over Kyoku Tenho, who they knew was not going to make Yokozuna. So that one makes sense to me, but I don't know about this other one.
So yeah, I guess depending on if Wakamoto Haru jumps over Koto no Waka here, that leads us to believe Wakamoto Haru future Yokozuna, if they're giving him that treatment based on your logic.
Based on my logic, they must. Yes, I have already established that they can see the future, so we have to maintain that throughout the rest of this. Yep, I got it.
So for my prediction, ultimately, I have Kotonowaka staying put at Komusubi 1 West, and Wakamoto Haru landing at Komusubi 1 East. And then that isn't the end of the Komusubi rank. I believe we have a couple of more straightforward slam dunk cases, just like Kiribayama, to create extra Komusubi ranks. Tobizaru got an 8-7 record from Maegashira 1 East rank, which since 1969 has meant promotion to the Sanyaku ranks every single time, even if you got to create an extra Komusubi rank to make it happen. We just saw this happen with Kiribayama a few basho ago. He was 8-7 for Maegashira 1 East. Both Komusubi slots were filled. He opened up a new Komusubi slot.
That's a no matter what.
Yeah. And then also at Maegashira 1 on the west side, we had Daisho, who got a 10-5 record. And every time a Maegashira 1 has gotten a 10-5 record, that has meant promotion to the Sanyaku ranks every single time in sumo history. So I think, once again, we could safely slot these two guys into extra Komusubi ranks. The order that they end up in, because Daisho had superior record 10-5, he should end up ahead of Tobizaru at Komusubi 2 East, and Tobizaru should land at Komusubi 2 West.
When you were saying like, well, we're starting the Bonsuke from scratch and you got to justify it each and every time to have these open slots, I'm like, dude, you have 7 junior Sanyaku here. How are you going to make that work? But no, those
Easily,
it turns out, without difficulty and with strong precedent.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what we like to see.
Exactly.
We don't like the bullshit from the last one. But as I mentioned when we were going through this Sanyaku ranks, there is only one rikishi that can claim they are being snubbed by not being a part of the Sanyaku ranks, and that is Tamawashi, who was 9-6 for Maegashira 2. But we saw that record and rank combination happen plenty in 2022, and a 9-6 record for Maegashira 2 does not an extra Sanyaku slot create. Once again, unless you're Meisei from Kyushu of last year, but that special,
we don't talk about
special case. We don't talk about that. So with that in mind, Tamawashi should easily land as the top Maegashira for the Haru Basho, as he's the next guy that deserves to be ranked. Following Tamawashi, the next clear-cut guy that deserves to be ranked is Shodai, who would be falling from the Sekiwake ranks after a 6-9 record. So I have him landing at Maegashira 1 West. If this is indeed how it shakes out and Shodai ends up outside of the Sanyaku ranks, this will be the first basho outside of the Sanyaku ranks for Shodai in 3 years. He was last to Maegashira in January of 2020.
In the before times.
Yeah. A lot of things were different in the before times. Let's just show we got crowds that can yell at full capacity now. Shodai's getting back to the Maegashira ranks. Things are getting back to normal.
This is truly post-COVID times now.
Yes.
Good Lord.
Then at Maegashira 2, we have 3 rikishi that are deserving of the Maegashira 2 rank. Those are Abi, Ryuden, and Nishikigi. For Nishikigi, he was 9-6 at Maegashira 5 West, while Ryuden was 9-6 for Maegashira 5 East. So we know that Nishikigi cannot be ahead of Ryuden. And both of them can't go ahead of Abi, or else Abi wouldn't get any promotion whatsoever. Which, once again, happened in the last basho with Midori Fuji and Sada Naomi, but I feel that would be fairly asinine to do again. This basho, there would be no reason to do so. So by process of elimination, we're looking at Abi and Ryuden for the 2 Maegashira 2 spots. And I'm going to go ahead.
I didn't need to interrupt there or anything. But I was just going to bring up, these two just seem inexorably linked. Somehow,
absolutely. Yeah.
I do not understand it, but like their entire Makuuchi career, they have like been tied together. They debuted at the same time. They were rising roughly the same. I know Abi's had higher peaks, but like they both got suspended for COVID crap. Now they're back in the top division and they're right next to each other again, probably.
And I think they both debuted at Komusubi in the same basho.
Jesus.
Like, these you take a look at these two guys' career. It's once they hit the Makuuchi division, it's absolutely insane how they mirror each other. It's crazy.
Despite having the polar opposite style of sumo. And I'm pretty sure Ryuden is a handful of years older too. He was kind of a late bloomer to get to the top division. But regardless, it's like that Lincoln and Kennedy assassination, like coincidence. Like there's too many similarities.
Yeah. Ryuden is 32 years old. Abi is 28 years old. Ryuden, when did Ryuden make his in-ring debut, Jake? What year?
I don't know, man. How old did you say?
32.
So 2008.
2006 is when Ryuden debuted, which is crazy to me that he's been in sumo wrestling for 17 years.
Since he was like 15? Wow. Okay, that is fresh off the vine.
Yeah. And Abi debuted in what year, Jake?
2007 somehow as like an 11-year-old?
2013.
Oh, okay. So there was nothing there.
And that seems reasonable, but yeah.
But you're just making me guess. Got it. Okay.
Just showing you, like, once I hit Makuuchi, it's the same, but Ryuden was in this thing for 7 years before Abi.
What year is it?
Yeah. So the order of these two rikishi, I'm going to have Abi taking the Maegashira 2 East rank. Joy bias for me. He was previously in the Joy, so I think he's going to get a little bit of favorable treatment against rikishi that were outside of the Joy. So I've got him rising 1 rank after an 8-7 record for Maegashira 3 East. And Ryuden, I have him rising 3 ranks to Maegashira 2 West after a 9-6 record for Maegashira 5 East. Then we get to Maegashira 3, and I could put Nishikigi at Maegashira 3 East. He's the next rikishi that deserves to be ranked. But there is a big part of me, and the largest part of me, because I put Mitake Yumi here, that thinks they are going to put Mitake Yumi ahead of Nishikigi, and that's once again due to Joy bias. It would give, for some reason, I'm really against giving rikishi like over promotions, even if it's by a half rank. So if we did put Nishikigi ahead of Mitake Yumi, that would be a half rank over demotion for Mitake Yumi from Maegashira 2 East to Maegashira 3 West. And I'm not going to over demote Mitake, not for Nishikigi. So I'm going to put Mitake Yumi at Maegashira 3 East after a 7-8 record for Maegashira 2 East.
Well, that's just bigoted for some reason. I don't understand that prejudice.
Joy bias is really why.
Not for Nishikigi.
Well, yeah. I mean, Mitake Yumi, he's won 3 Yusho. You're going to put Nishikigi ahead of him?
Nishikigi
outside of the Joy Nishikigi? No, not happening.
Unbelievable.
Not in my Bonsuke.
Beyond the pale.
Yeah. And so that means I've got Nishikigi rising 2 ranks after his 9-6 record for Maegashira 5 West. Then we get to Maegashira 4 East, which, if the Bonsuke is created how I have projected it to be, this will be our final rank for the Joy. We will be dropping from 10 rikishi in the Sanyaku to 9 rikishi in the Sanyaku. So that means the Joy, the top 16 rikishi, will extend out 1 more rank from Maegashira 3 West to Maegashira 4 East. And I need to consider one thing that is absolutely stronger than Joy bias when filling this rank, and that is Sanyaku bias. And Sanyaku bias is exactly why I have Meisei taking the final spot here in the Joy and landing at Maegashira 4 East after a 5-10 record from the Komusubi rank. In order to put Meisei here, I have to snub Onosho, who deserves to be 2 ranks ahead of Meisei. But in just the last Basho, we had a situation where Abi deserved to be 2 ranks ahead of Tamawashi, who was falling out of the Sanyaku ranks. Tamawashi was 6-9 from Komusubi. And Tamawashi still ended up ahead of Abi in that scenario. We also saw in Hatsu 2020, we're going to link these guys together once again. Abi went 5-10 from Komusubi, and Ryuden was 10-5 from Maegashira 8. The same exact situation we have now, and Abi was ranked ahead of Ryuden in that Bonsuke. So I think we're going to see something similar here, where the 5-10 Meisei will be ahead of the 10-5 Onosho. So moving on to our mid Maegashira ranks, I've got Onosho landing at Maegashira 4 West. There's no one else that deserves to go above him, so it should be a pretty easy slot in for Onosho here, provided he isn't ahead of Meisei for some reason. At Maegashira 5, we have a group of 3 rikishi we need to look at to determine who ends up at Maegashira 5. All 3 of these guys deserve to be Maegashira 6, but there's no one that deserves to go higher than these 3. So somebody's getting over promoted here. That group includes Midori Fuji, who was 6-9 for Maegashira 3, Endo, who was 9-6 for Maegashira 9, and Koto Shoho, who was 11-4 for Maegashira 13. Typically, looking at these 3, I would have Koto Shoho landing ahead of the other 2, since he is the only one of these 3 that was on the east side. And if you remember from our last Bonsuke, we really tried to hone in on those tiebreaker rules, and we found out first and foremost, east beats west. So Koto Shoho was the only guy on the east side of these 3 in the previous Bonsuke. But Midori Fuji was in the Joy. And so I'm going to assume that there's going to be some joy bias involved and that he will be ranked ahead of the other 2. So I have Midori Fuji dropping 2 ranks to Maegashira 5 East. And then when looking at Endo versus Koto Shoho, we're going to go with the east side over west side rule and put Koto Shoho at Maegashira 5 West. That would be a rise of, where was he at? Maegashira 13. So a rise of 8 ranks for Koto Shoho after his 11-4 Jun Yusho performance in the Hatsu Basho.
Big one.
Yep. The biggest jump we're gonna see on this Bonsuke, at least for a Makuuchi rikishi. Then when we get to Maegashira 6, on the east side, Endo is going to take that spot. No one else can really challenge to be ahead of him at this point. And then at Maegashira 6 West, we need to look at 2 rikishi that both deserve to be Maegashira 7, Hokuto Fuji and Sada no Umi. Neither of them were in the Joy, so we don't have to worry about any sort of bias for either of those 2. So the first thing we need to look at, who was on the east side, who was on the west side. Only Hokuto Fuji was on the east side previously, so I've got him landing at Maegashira 6 West, sliding over for Maegashira 6 East after a 7-8 record. Sliding down to Maegashira 7, Sada no Umi is going to take the Maegashira 7 East spot, dropping for Maegashira 4 West after a 6-9 record. There's nobody else that deserves to be ranked ahead of him here. And then at Maegashira 7 West, I'm going to have Ura staying right where he previously was after a 7-8 record from the same ranking in the Hatsu Basho. If we were to put someone else here, it would be to pull someone up who deserves to be ranked Maegashira 9. And based how the Bonsuke committee has been putting these Bonsukes together over the past few Basho, they're not going to drop rikishi who is 7-8 below a rikishi who he deserves to be ahead of just for the sake of dropping that rikishi down a rank due to a losing record. So I've got Ura staying put after his 7-8 record. Then we get to Maegashira 8. So now we need to start pulling from that group of 4 rikishi that deserve to be ranked Maegashira 9 that we put Ura ahead of all those guys. Or we could look at Takayasu here. So there's not a lot of recent history for us to examine what happens to a Sekiwake that goes 1-14. We've got plenty of Sekiwake that have gone 0-15. Not a lot of guys go 1-14 from the rank. So recent history of Sekiwakes that do end up with 0 wins, you end up around Maegashira 9, Maegashira 10. That's been fairly consistent over the past few cases that has happened.
Sure.
And then we also have some recent precedent for what a Sekiwake with 2 wins ends up at, and that guy ended up at Maegashira 6. That's just one situation. Who knows what was going on with the Bonsuke at that time? Could be an outlier, might not be. But I feel like Maegashira 8, that's kind of right in between those 2 rankings. 1 is right between 0 and 2. So it makes sense that he would land in this range. Plus, anybody we place
Math
here,
checks out.
the math checks out. Anybody else that we place here at the Maegashira 8 East rank would be over promoted, which is kind of a great place to put a falling member of the Sanyaku ranks and use them to fill a gap to prevent over promotions or under demotions. So I am going to have Takayasu land here at Maegashira 8 East after his 1-14 record from Sekiwake to hopefully prevent some over promotions here.
Sure.
I say that knowing that we've got a group of 4 rikishi who all deserve to be Maegashira 9 by putting Takayasu here at Maegashira 8. that means one of those four is going to have to be slightly over demoted or under promoted. But you know what? Takayasu's got that big Sanyaku bias. I'm okay with that happening.
A lot of big things he's got going for him.
Yeah. So at Maegashira 8 West, now we're going to look at those four rikishi that deserve to be Maegashira 9 I mentioned before. Those being Miyugiryu, who was 6-9 for Maegashira 6, Aoyama and Hiradeumi, who were both 8-7 for Maegashira 10, and Ichi Yamamoto, who was 10-5 from Maegashira 14. This is probably going to be the best test on this Bonsuke for the tiebreaker rules that we established in the last Basho and see how consistent the Bonsuke committee is going to be. Spoiler alert,
Yeah.
it's not going to be consistent at all. But this is what they did last time. Hopefully they carry it through for one more Basho.
Sure.
So we start by looking at who was on the east and the west sides, and we had two from this group that were previously on the east side in the Hatsu Basho. Those were Aoyama and Ichi Yamamoto. So next we have to look at who had more wins between the two. Ichi Yamamoto had 10 wins, Aoyama had 8 wins. So if things are consistent from Basho to Basho, Ichi Yamamoto should be ranked ahead of Aoyama, and in my prediction, landing at Maegashira 8 West. Then at Maegashira 9 on the east side, that should go to Aoyama. He was the other guy that was previously on the east side. And now we've got to fill the Maegashira 9 west slot. And we have to look at the two rikishi that were previously on the west side, Miyugiryu and Hiradeumi. Hiradeumi had 8 wins compared to Miyugiryu 6. So I have him taking the Maegashira 9 west slot, which means once we get to Maegashira 10, Miyugiryu should land there at Maegashira 10 East, which is a slight over demotion for him. He was 6-9 from Maegashira 6, so this would be a 4 rank drop for him. So if Takayasu doesn't go at Maegashira 8 East, I feel like he would go at Maegashira 10 East. That would just be preventing any of those group of 4 getting an over promotion or an under demotion or under promotion or over demotion. Got it.
Oh man. That was a tough one, but I think I'm not even sure you did get there. I can't verify that.
I'm pretty sure we're usually talking about over promotions and under demotions because it's just nobody that deserves to be there. We're not often talking about the under promotions and over demotions because there's just too many people that can go in a spot. So sure. I got myself flipped around, but I think we ended up in the right spot at the end.
I trust you.
You shouldn't. At Maegashira 10 on the west side, we need to look at two rikishi that deserve to be ranked Maegashira 11. So somebody's going to be pulled up just a slight amount here. Only one of them was previously on the east side, and that was Nishiki Fuji. So I have him taking the Maegashira 10 West rank after a 4-11 record from Maegashira 4 East. Then
I do got to give you props for separating Nishiki Fuji and Nishikigi further apart on the Bonsuke, because it was not acceptable to have those guys almost right next to each other.
Gonna be a lot easier for you to read the Bonsuke and know who the hell you're talking about.
I should not have to put effort into like figuring out which name I'm looking at, and those are way too similar.
I'm glad that I used my powers to help you out here, Jake. It is my pleasure.
Yep, like I said, I trust you.
At Maegashira 11 on the east side is the one that I had losing the tiebreaker to Nishiki Fuji, and that is Azumaryu, who I have rising here from Maegashira 14 West after a 9-6 record for the first time in Azumaryu's illustrious career.
Long?
Yeah, we'll just go with long career. He is being promoted in the Makuuchi division, guy who has dipped his toes in the Makuuchi division starting as soon as 2013. So his first promotion, I guess. Congratulations, Azumaryu. I hope you get like a 3-12 record and kick you right back down to Juryo where you belong.
He's also been in sumo less time than Ryuden.
Yeah. I think Azumaryu's like 35 though. He's got 3 years on Ryuden.
He's 35, yeah. So he didn't start till he was he went to university. That's what happened. Okay.
Makes sense. At Maegashira 11 on the west side, there's really no debate for the next rikishi that deserves to be ranked. Takanosho is the only guy that deserves to be ranked at Maegashira 12, which is where we'll have to pull him up for. So I have him landing at Maegashira 11 West, falling from Maegashira 9 East after a 6-9 record. When we get to Maegashira 12, things start to get a little bit more interesting again, because we're going to start looking at rikishi that deserve to be promoted from Juryo. So to fill the Maegashira 12 ranks, we're going to start by looking at 2 rikishi that deserve to be Maegashira 13. So slight over promotions for these guys. One of them is Kageyaki, and the other one is Daishoho from Juryo. By this point, everybody knows the rule: be a dick to Juryo rikishi. So Kageyaki should easily hold on to the Maegashira 12 East rank after a 7-8 record from the same spot in the Hatsubasho. So
thus continuing the trend of Kageyaki getting favorable Bonsuke.
Absolutely, yes. And so there's a rule surrounding Juryo rikishi that I haven't mentioned for a few basho, but I believe it is going to come into play now, I hope. And that is the rule that no Juryo rikishi should be placed ahead of any Makuuchi rikishi that had a winning record. There are exceptions to that rule, but that typically only occurs when the Juryo rikishi in consideration was ranked like Juryo 1 or Juryo 2. That is not the case with Daishoho, who was 12-3 from the Juryo 6 rank. So instead of Daishoho landing at Maegashira 12 West, I'm going to vault Takeda Fuji up a few ranks higher than he deserves, so that we could be a further dick to the Juryo rikishi.
You're going to bump him 4 ranks for that? For an 8 and 7?
Yeah. Oh, we've done worse.
That's a good point. I mean, yeah, we've done worse, but like that's a low bar, you know.
Yeah,
it's still weird to me.
Yeah, because we can't. There's no other Makuuchi rikishi that we could put ahead of Daishoho at this point, because that would all involve promoting somebody with a losing record. Mm-hmm. And I do think there is different treatment for rikishi that are like Juryo 1 through 3 and people beyond that. Just looking at past Bonsuke stuff, they seem to get a little bit more nicer treatment than some of these guys coming from mid Juryo. So sure. I think Takeda Fuji might get a nice little bump up here, just for the sake of being an ass to some Juryo rikishi.
A noble goal.
Yes. So we go to Maegashira 13. Obviously, we could take a look at Daishoho, who deserves to be a Maegashira 13. We can also look at 3 rikishi that deserve to be Maegashira 14, because another one of our rules: in order for a Juryo rikishi to be ranked ahead of a Makuuchi rikishi, he needs to deserve to be 2 ranks higher than them. So Daishoho deserves to be ranked Maegashira 13, and we have 3 rikishi that deserve to be Maegashira 14: Kotoeko, Bushozan, and Kinbozan. But we can actually eliminate all 3 of those guys from contention for the Maegashira 13 East rank. Kotoeko was 7-8 for Maegashira 13 West, so he cannot be promoted to Maegashira 13 East. And Bushozan and Kinbozan are also Juryo rikishi, so they're not going to go ahead of Daishoho, who deserves to be the highest ranked of the Juryo promotees.
Because we need to be equally dickish to all 3 of them, is what you're saying.
Right, and it would just be weird if we promoted Kinbozan ahead of Daishoho. Daishoho should be ahead of Kinbozan.
Got it.
Yeah. So do we just put Daishoho here? It kind of seems like we should. But if we go down and look one rank further at the guys who deserve to be Maegashira 15, there's one interesting candidate, to me at least, and that is Oho. So as I mentioned, our typical rule is if a Juryo rikishi deserves to be 2 ranks ahead of a Makuuchi rikishi, then they can be placed ahead of them, which is what we have here with Daishoho deserving to be Maegashira 13 and Oho deserving to be Maegashira 15. But I did a little bit more research because I feel like we haven't seen too many Juryo rikishi get promoted to Maegashira 13 or above recently. And there have been some, but not too many. And all of the rikishi that have been promoted this high since 2019 were ranked Juryo 1 or Juryo 2. The last time that a Juryo 6 or below rikishi got promotion to at least Maegashira 13 was Sokokurai in 2017, who was 14-1 from Juryo 7. So he deserves to be higher than what Daishoho deserves to be on this Bonsuke.
Sure.
So that's kind of going back to what I was saying. I feel like if you're Juryo 1, 2, 3, you're more likely to get promoted up this high than if you were mid Juryo rikishi. So for that reason, and it's not very strong reasoning, this is a new theory I'm working with. We'll see how it plays out this time. I am going to be a further dick to Daishoho and put Oho here at Maegashira 13 East, falling from Maegashira 8 West after a 4-11 record. And now that opens up the door for us to be further dick to Daishoho. Kotoeko can land here at Maegashira 13 West, 7-8 record from the same spot. Kotoeko deserves to be 1 rank below Daishoho. That's not 2 ranks. So we're going to have Kotoeko land at Maegashira 13 West, once again ahead of Daishoho, since Daishoho only deserves to be 1 rank higher than him.
And yet again, your math checks out. That is 1 higher.
I'm killing it on the simple arithmetic this week.
Absolutely. Man, well, I'm glad this doesn't involve any multiplication or anything like that.
Oh God, I'm not gonna lie. I'm good at math.
No, you probably do that
I'd still
fine,
be
too.
fine. I'd be fine. Yeah.
But your ability to add and subtract single digit numbers is astounding.
Second to none, I would say. You give me a test of 100 single digit addition problems. Nobody's going to do better on that than me.
I'm getting at least 60 or 70 of them right. Like, no problem. Not even breaking a sweat.
Exactly. All right. Maegashira 14. I'm going to finally stop being a dick to Daishoho. The next Makuuchi Rikishi that deserves to be ranked deserves to be 3 ranks lower than Daishoho. So I feel okay and safe putting him here at Maegashira 14 East after his 12-3 record from Juryo 6. Nobody was asking for Daishoho to get promoted back into Makuuchi, but here we are. I've been so mean to some of these Juryo promotees recently. There's just so many guys down in Juryo that I want to see now that I get mad when that spot is taken by somebody we know can't hang up here.
Right. Somebody who's been around for a while. Let's see. When did he debut? He's never made it higher than Maegashira 9. But he's
been as high as Maegashira 9?
That astounded me as well. But oh no, Sumo DB is down. Hopefully I can. Nope, stop loading the new page. Stay here. Save my Bonsuke. He's been around for a while. I remember he was in the top division like when we first started watching. Like he's been like one of those Juryo level gatekeepers for a long time.
Yeah. All right. So after Daishoho, things get a bit muddled for me, and I probably overthought things. Because when you give me an extra week to work on the Banzuke, this is what happens. So we've got Bushozan and Kinbozan coming up from Juryo. Both of them deserve to be the same rank. And we also have Chiyoshoma, who was 5-10 from Maegashira 11, and he deserves to be 2 ranks below these two. Working with my new theory of being an extra dick to Rikishi, Juryo 4 or below, I'm going to go with Bushozan here. So he was Juryo 1 West. He is in the range where deserving to be 2 ranks ahead of a Makuuchi Rikishi works. And when I look back at the previous Bonsuke, I was confused why Aqua was not promoted to the Makuuchi division and like Chiyomaru made it instead. Chiyomaru was 8-7 from Juryo 1 West. Aqua was 10-5 from Juryo 5 East. By all tie-breaking scenarios, Aqua deserved to go in ahead of Chiyomaru. So my thinking right now is maybe there's just even more bias against promoting a Rikishi from those mid-Juryo ranks. So with that assumption, I have Bushozan going ahead of Kinbozan, despite the fact that Kinbozan would win the regular tiebreakers. Kinbozan was on the east side, Bushozan was on the west side. Kinbozan had more wins than Bushozan, but it's almost kind of a mirror situation that we had last time with Aqua versus Chiyomaru. So I'm just using that past precedent of only one Basho ago to see if we can be consistent. And if we're consistent, that would mean putting Bushozan ahead of Kinbozan here. So that's who I have landing at Maegashira 14 West. It's Bushozan.
No, you definitely didn't overthink this. I don't think you thought about it enough.
Hold on. So
I'm just getting started.
Almost. Maegashira 15. I'm going to break my 2 rank rule here again. because I'm going to put Chiyoshima at Maegashira 15 East ahead of Juryo Promote Kinbozan, despite Kinbozan deserving to be 2 ranks ahead of Chiyoshima. And this is similar to the Daishoho situation with Kinbozan coming in from the mid Juryo rank of Juryo 5, and I don't think they get treated nicely. And I've got some recent precedent that I'm going with that helps me feel a little bit better. So if we look back at Natsu 22 Basho, this is the Basho where Ishiura was at his career high rank of Maegashira 5, and then he injured his neck after getting 2 wins, and then he dropped precipitously down the Bonsuke. And he dropped behind a few Juryo Rikishi, and notably not behind another Juryo Rikishi. So there was Oho, who was 10-5 from Juryo 1 that Basho. He deserved to be 3 ranks ahead of Ishiura, and he went ahead of Ishiura. There was Azumaru, who was 10-5 from Juryo 2. He deserved to be 2 ranks ahead of Ishiura, and he went ahead of Ishiura. Then there was Midori Fuji, who went 12-3 from Juryo 6. He deserved to be 2 ranks ahead of Ishiura. He did not end up ahead of Ishiura. So I know there's a big difference between Maegashira 5 and Maegashira 11, but I'm still going to roll the dice on this one and say Kinbozan gets a little bit snubbed here and goes behind Chiyoshima. Just kind of seeing that pattern recently of Juryo 1 through Juryo 3 Rikishi kind of getting ahead of more Maegashira Rikishi than maybe a Juryo 5, 6 kind of guy will. So we'll see how much of that holds true after this Bonsuke and see if that is something we might need to pay more attention to in the future. Probably not.
No, probably not though.
Yeah. Maegashira 16. This rank is luckily a lot easier. Tsurugisho, Mitoryu both went 7 and 8 for Maegashira 15. So I've got both of them dropping a rank to Maegashira 16 East for Tsurugisho and Maegashira 16 West for Mitoryu. They were both low enough in the Makuuchi ranks that I think the 2-rank rule will hold for both of them when it comes to Bushozan and Kinbozan being ranked ahead of them. So pretty comfortable dropping both of those guys down a rank. And then we get to the Maegashira 17 rank, which will be added back to the Bonsuke because in my prediction, we are losing 1 Sanyaku rank, just the east side. No Maegashira 17 West in this prediction. So this is the rank that I've probably gotten the most questions about because people want to know, will Awesome Yamaka make it back to the top division in March after he went 14-1 from Juryo 12? Awesome Yamaka, of course, being Asanoyama. As it stands, Asanoyama is tied for who deserves this final spot with Hokuseiho, who went 9-6 from Juryo 2. And for me, I think we've got to wait one more Basho to see Asanoyama in the top division again. Last day wins by Tsurugisho, Mitoryu, and Oho all prevented an extra slot in the top division from being opened up that would have allowed both these guys to easily walk into the top division. But due to Hokuseiho previously being on the east side while Asanoyama was on the west side, and my newfound conviction that Juryo 1 through Juryo 3 Rikishi are treated different than the rest of Juryo, I think Hokuseiho will take this final spot, which for me is just another reason to hate Tsurugisho. Because if he had just lost on one of his like final 4 or 5 days when he went on a unnecessary winning streak, we could have had both
so rude.
Hokuseiho and Asanoyama in here. But yeah, I just think I don't know how you deny a 9-6 Rikishi from Juryo 2. I know it's happened, but some people think that we know what Asanoyama is. They're going to fast track him back into the top division. I really don't think they play super favorites like that when building the Bonsuke. I really feel like this is where you deserve to go. Like, this was your rank and record. This is where you deserve to go now. And based on that, I think Hokuseiho takes the tiebreaker over Asanoyama here. So one more Basho wait for Asanoyama, unfortunately.
So yeah, actually we'll get to that in a minute. We had a listener question come up, but let's finish off the Bonsuke first.
So yeah, I had 3 Rikishi being brought up 4 rikishi being brought up to Makuuchi from Juryo, those being Daishoho, Bushozan, Kinbozan, Hokuseiho. 3 of those are great names to 3 newcomers. 2 of those with pretty high hopes, and then one of them's Daishoho, who we expect to be shuffled back. But in order to make room for those 4,
just can't help it, but just toss a little extra handful of salt at him.
It's my newfound hate. Let me have this for a basho or 2. I'll get bored of it by the time Nagoya rolls around, I'm sure.
That's okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's probably certain.
Yeah. In order to make room for these 4 rikishi, we had to say goodbye to 4 rikishi, those being Ichinojo, who was suspended for the Hatsubasho for breaking COVID protocols, Tochinoshin, who pulled out injured after only managing 2 wins at Maegashira 11, and Chiyomaru, who went 4-11 from the bottom spot in the top division, and also for Okinoumi, who retired mid-basho. So, Jake, listening to all that, I've got some new theories in work now. What do you think I most likely got wrong on this Banzuke?
100% it's the Juryo stuff.
Yeah. Whenever I introduce some new logic, that's always your go-to answer. And you know what? You're not wrong.
No, it's not necessarily because it's new logic. It's because there's way too much of it. I think that I think your instinct to open that segment with, I think I overthought this.
Probably put more thought of it into it than the Banzuke committee did.
Yeah, seriously. Like they probably just like moved the the little names around on the board, and they're like, that guy's a Juryo. I don't know, move him down 1, whatever. Like that's probably about as far as they got. But like, yeah, I think that it is both the most interesting part of the Banzuke to look at for next time, and I think it is also the spot that you're most likely to have a bunch of like 1 or 2 off.
Yeah. The rest of the Banzuke is actually fairly straightforward, I feel like. There's a couple of spots where's Takayasu going to land that could push a couple of things, but like most of it before we kind of get to the Juryo stuff really feels like that's just how it's going to be. I might miss an east-west, but I'm going to get the guys in the right spot. It's when we get down to Maegashira 13, we start considering the Juryo guys. That's where it kind of gets, I don't really fully know what's going to happen here.
Those guys could be off as far as like a rank or maybe even 2 in 1 or 2 circumstances. But like,
yeah,
that's really the only spot where like, I think that there's any gaps in your logic to at least even get like a proper guess, right?
Ho, gaps in logic. I feel like I laid out my logic pretty soundly.
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
All right. You said we had a listener question.
Yes. A listener named David reached out through our website and wanted to ask about Ochi and Asanoyama, the 2 winners of the Yusho in the lower divisions below the top division. And I feel like we kind of already touched on Asanoyama. I think both of these kind of have answered themselves for the most part by the time that, this has come out, because as you went into extensively, we think that Asanoyama is going to stay in Juryo. And if not, he's going to, if at most he's going to end up in that Maegashira 17 slot. Is that what you're thinking?
If Asanoyama makes it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's like the best that he could do, you think?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, he's going to be Juryo, almost certainly Juryo 1.
Yeah, I think so.
And I'd say with the far ends of the confidence interval being Maegashira 17 or Juryo 2.
Yeah.
And then Ochi is the guy that debuted in Miyagino's stable, Hakuho's stable, in this most recent tournament, went 7-0 and won the Yusho in the Makushita division. We have already gotten confirmation that he will be a Sekitori. He will be in the Juryo division, very likely the bottom slot or 2.
Hey, Jake.
Yeah.
Our year-long nightmare is over. Mm-hmm. Ochi has brought the GSB belt.
We didn't know that last
Juryo.
time we returned.
That's right.
Last time we recorded, yeah. Oh, yes. No, we've already had this conversation amongst ourselves, but it was after we had finished recording. But Ochi, the holder of the GSB belt, getting promoted into Juryo means the belt is finally in the paid ranks after
It made it to the paid ranks, but then a Juryo rikishi fought a Makushita rikishi and lost to the Makushita rikishi. So then it stayed down in Makushita for a little bit longer.
It has happened before. You're right.
Ochi is probably going to be the bottom guy in Juryo. And if there's an imbalanced number of rikishi in the Juryo division, he would get the first matchup against a Makushita rikishi. And so there is a chance Ochi could lose it on day one to a Makushita rikishi, and we do this whole song and dance over again. But as of now, GSB belt is on the hands or the waist of a Sekitori.
So basically, it's the first, let's see, what's 42 plus 28? That's 70, right? Mm-hmm. There's any one of those top 70 guys, anyone in Makuuchi or Juryo. If one guy pulls out, that means that there will be an imbalance that'll pull a Juryo guy up to Makuuchi or a Makushita guy up into Juryo. So that match is likely to happen. If an odd number of people pull out, or if at any point during the Basho, an odd number of people in either of the top two divisions, I'd say it's likely Ochi will have a match against a Makushita rikishi, but he's proven he's pretty good. So
dude's undefeated. I don't know what we're even worried about here.
Fair, but the chance will be there almost certainly.
Yeah.
But yes, he will be at the bottom of Juryo, but at the very least in Juryo. So we're not positive of the rank, but yeah, he'll be in there.
Yeah, and Ochi, hot prospect, everybody should keep an eye out for, but apparently not the hottest prospect that's going to be joining Sumo this year. Don't know quite when he's going to be joining yet, but there's a guy by the name of Nakamura who apparently has all the collegiate Yusho, like
yes,
all of them. You need to win 2 like collegiate Yusho to be able to join Sumo at the rank of Makushita 10. I believe he has 5 collegiate,
including
whatever to his name.
Yeah, including medals from the World Games this year in amateur sumo in Alabama.
Yeah,
where he deserved it. He kicked so much butt.
So we've got another guy that's going to be debuting in Makushita. I don't think he's like joined a Heya yet. Because I saw some article about apparently some Oyakata are getting upset that Hakuho's getting all the good people coming in, and there's talk that Nakamura might join Miyagi no Stable alongside Ochi and Hokuseiho and all that stuff.
Hey, you mean I have the possibility of being trained by the greatest to ever do my sport? I guess I'll join his stable.
Yeah,
how controversial.
Compete daily against Hokuseiho and Ochi, who, well, those guys haven't really done a whole lot yet. There's a lot expected of them. And then you kick in like Enho, Ishiura, if he ever gets healthy. You've got other Sekitori in there. Like Miyagi no Stable is setting themselves up to be good, especially if they get this Nakamura fella.
And Hakuho, as he moves on to his Fleric actually sent us a picture of the kind of training that Kisano Sato is doing, or the former Kisano Sato is doing. These guys that are just getting into the coaching here are using like more modern methods and like trying to mix things up and get more scientific. I can't quite tell what's going on in the picture that he sent, but it looks like they're doing like full motion capture of Tachi eyes to like see exactly where people are charging into each other.
Yeah, Fleric sent us a photo that shows what's Kisano Sato's name now?
He was Araiso for a while.
It's not Araiso anymore.
I'll figure it out, but you go on.
Yeah. But that stable, and we can see at least 4 cameras that are filming the rikishi that are training there. And then there's a picture of a computer that they got where they have like an overhead image of the 2 rikishi, and it just shows their skeletal structure as they're locked up at the Tachi or just at midpoint in the match. It's like showing their skeletal structure of what's going on in the match. And so I don't know if there's another overhead camera, or if they're able to get that with the composite of the 4 other cameras going on, but they got some high end stuff going on at Kisano Sato's stable. They're really bringing the technology in to see what's going on, which is really interesting.
His elder name is currently Hagiwara.
No, it's not. Nope. That is absolutely
that's his birth name.
Nishonoseki. There it is.
Nishonoseki. That's his birth name. I'm such an idiot. I saw Kisano Sato as the like opening sentence on Wikipedia, and then I saw Hagiwara. Yeah, there you go. That's another name. Yes, Nishono Seki. But yeah, either way, he is I mean, yeah, we're talking about Kisano Sato and Hakuho here, but like I know that they have both expressed the opinion that like they need to update training and they need to train for sumo in the 21st century here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I do not blame a prospect for looking at the kind of stuff that those guys have done and are doing now and being like, yeah, that's a pretty strong argument. That's the camp that's going to get me titles.
Absolutely. And to tie up one more loose end we had talked about in this episode, Daishoho debuted in March 2019 in the top division. As you said, he hung around for 5 basho, and then he went down to Juryo to Makushita. Actually, he hasn't been back to the top division since that 5 basho stint. So
I thought I remember seeing his name a lot further back than that.
Nope.
Like when we were starting out. Yeah, I guess not.
Maybe in Juryo. I think we probably talked about him because he has a fun name, Daishoho.
Sure, could be.
That's all I could think of. But yeah, he was debuted in March 2019.
I'm definitely thinking of somebody else because I remember there were some guys with similar names to that I could not keep straight when I was a beginning.
You're probably
sumo
thinking
fan.
of Daishomaru was around.
That is almost certainly who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
But regardless, yeah, as a beginning sumo fan, there's so many names and a lot of them are very similar. So yeah, I remember there were a couple of those guys that were throwing me.
Mm. Do you know what shocks me? We're at the end of the episode, so we're just going off on tangents now.
Oh god, yeah. No, we're just going until one of our wives tells us we have to quit.
Yeah. I don't know where I stumbled upon this. Daisho debuted in Makuuchi in Aki of 2015. And that just, for some reason, just like I did not know Daisho was in the top division all the way back in 2015. Like I didn't
feel like
think
we learned who he was in like 2020-ish. Right?
Basically, yeah. He went back down to Juryo fairly quickly, came back up, went back down to Juryo, and he's been in the top division consistently since March of 2017. But he had initially debuted in 2015, which did not expect that from Daisho.
No.
He is 29 years old. Okay. All right. I have no other tangents for which I can go down. So this Banzuke that I predicted, it will be released on Sunday, February 27th, and the basho will start March 12th. And so if you enjoyed this podcast, you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, your favorite podcast listening service. You can check out Grand Sumo Breakdown on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or on YouTube. You can check out our blog at grandsumobreakdown.wordpress.org. Our email is grandsumobreakdown@gmail.com. Send us any comments, questions, or corrections, or you can leave us a voicemail at 805-613-7866, 805-613-SUMO.
I'm just offended you didn't ask if I had any tangents left.
Jake, do you have any tangents left?
Nah, I guess I've been reading some books recently. I don't read very much, but like I kind of got back into it. The Horus Heresy series of Warhammer 40K books, pretty entertaining. Everybody is a bloodthirsty evil fascist, yet somehow all of the characters being bloodthirsty evil fascists clicks. It's like it's like, you know, a teepee of sticks holding each other up because they're all tilted, you know, somehow.
Yeah.
It's like that. It works.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I started book 4 of the Codex Alera recently, but I have such a hard time reading, like finding time for reading, because I also have I've got my TV shows that I want to watch, and then I've got video games I want to play, then I got books I want to read, and having a kid, I only have this small window of time at the end of the day to do any of those things. So it's just kind of whatever I want to do. So right now I'm kind of just playing video games. Like once Gabby and I are done watching TV after Riley's in bed, and now that I'm working from home, I can extend my bedtime out a little bit longer. So usually it's like 11:30 now. So basically from 9:30 to 11:30, I've got 2 hours of Ryan time. And right now that Ryan time is being filled with God of War Ragnarok. I'm finally playing that. I had been playing Pokemon Scarlet, filling up my Pokedex there, and now I'm on to God of War, and then I'm going to move on to Breath of the Wild. I need to 100% my save file there before Tears of the Kingdom comes out on my birthday, which I'm taking that day off so I can exclusively play Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
There you go.
So there's my rundown of what video games I've been playing that nobody asked for.
Yeah.
By the way,
and if you are also reading Horus Heresy books, let us know in the comments. Who's the bigger dick? Is it Lehman Russ or is it Erebus?
Oh, it's obviously Erebus. Don't even get me started.
Yeah. He's
Thanks for
preachy about
listening.
it. He's preachy about it too. It's the worst.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to Grand Sumo Breakdown. Until next time,
Throw your salt high.
And keep moving forward.